a little bit later on, my Dhamma reflection is going to be about something, the Pali word is called Nibbida, which is sometimes translated as disenchantment, disillusionment, letting go, turning away, even revulsion. I'd like you to notice if this letting go or this disengagement might come up for you during the meditation. I'll give a guided meditation that's very standard, mindful awareness of the body, awareness of the breath. And then in the course of the meditation, it's possible that some hindrance or something opposite to meditation could come along in the mind. Some emotion or some inclination to not practice meditation, but instead to think about our problems or to daydream or do something else instead of meditation. And if you notice that, I invite you to quickly observe this has come along because of causes and conditions. This is impermanent. It's impersonal. And it has the quality of dukkha because of being impermanent. And then just give it up. It would be like a jackal who's trying to eat a tortoise, and the tortoise just pulled its head and its feet in, and the jackal is not able to get at the meat. It tries and tries and tries. It's frustrated. He can't get any nourishment out of it. So he just gives up and walks away. So if anything negative, if any hindrance come up, see if you can come to the point of giving up that hindrance, walk away from that hindrance, and then come back to the meditation procedure. And then even the meditation itself, or the delightful calmness, bliss, or freedom that we can sometimes experience in meditation, we can also see that that is conditioned. That's something impersonal, not personal. Because it's impermanent and conditioned, it also is dukkha, even if it's very blissful. Even if we're having a great meditation, it's part of conditioned things. This is not the final solution. And so even while we're continuing to do meditation, to follow the meditation procedure, at some level, we also give up. We give up clinging to it or wanting it. We give up taking refuge in it. We're actually willing to let go even the most delightful meditation, we're willing to give it up, willing to let it go. So having planted this idea about Nibbida as a sort of a preliminary idea, let us sit together for some meditation. Dear friends, in a few days, we're going to be starting the brief at-home retreat on the nutriments of existence. That is, in the Buddha's analysis, 4 things that nourish the process of life. That is the material food, which nourishes the physical body. Then the contact, which nourishes the 3 feelings. Then the mano sanchetana, the creative mind with its intentions, which are the basis for the karma that we do, that determines what kind of existence we are getting. And then last of all, the vijnana, which is said to be the condition for mentality and materiality, for the mind and body, of an individual. It's kind of interesting that I've done some reading over the years from different psychology perspective or Darwinian perspective about what is the essence of the process that sustains life of creatures. And I haven't come across modern or Western teachings that really summarize it in just this way. So I hope that when you come, those who are going to attend or listen to the talks that are coming up this weekend, that you'll find it to be kind of interesting to understand. There are those things that are skillful and those that are unskillful in terms of the choices that we make. And we hope that we can learn how to let go of what is unskillful and develop what's skillful. And then eventually develop the wisdom to be willing to give up craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for existence.
Ayya.
You want me to be louder?
Yes, thank you, Ayya.
Okay, sorry. So the characteristic of the nutriments an aspect that's interesting is that even an arahant, before he's passed away or before she has passed away, is still using material food to sustain the life of the body. Even an arahant is still making contact through the senses and still experiencing pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling. Even an arahant is still forming some intentions, even though these are not the kind of intentions that are leading towards rebirth. And even an arahant is consciously experiencing the objects of knowledge. And so these factors are things that can be filled of danger can be taken in the wrong way, can be clung to, can be held to in ways that are keeping us bound on this wheel of samsara, or stuck in the round of rebirth, experiencing the suffering of having to go around and around on the same merry-go-round. Or they can be held in a way which is not participating in any kind of clinging, is not participating in craving, is not actually participating in dukkha. So it would be possible to even use the material food that keeps the body going, or even to use the clothing that we use to protect the modesty of the body and to protect the body from the elements, even to use the lodgings that are protecting us from the weather, even using the medicines that are used to protect the health of the body, that these things can be used in a way which is not causing the proliferation of dukkha. And one can experience contact through the senses and the resulting feeling that arises without clinging or craving, and without feeding the increase of dukkha, without picking up dukkha at all. It seems to me that this Pali word, Nibbida, is the secret sauce or the secret ingredient that makes it possible to use the nutriments without unskillfully perpetuating or being trapped in the suffering of the round. It's said in the sutta, I think we read it, I'm not sure which suttas we read in this group or which ones we read elsewhere, that the purpose of the contemplation or the full understanding of the nutriments is to develop this nibbida towards the nutriments. Controversially, some of the translations have translated nibbida as revulsion or repulsion. And it's sort of got the idea that, like, if you know how bad dukkha is, you will be repulsed toward, you'll find it repulsive, and then you'll turn away from it. And then students find this very confusing, because that translation of nibbida seems to mean that we're aversive towards it, that we have ill will towards dukkha. And having ill will itself is not the solution to our problem. So how to understand nibbida in a way which is not participating in ill will. Ajahn Brahm wrote, when we really understand the problem of suffering, it's neither trying to escape nor accepting whatever comes. It's nibbida. Nibbida means disengaging. We turn away from this thing we call life. When you disengage, you have no business there. And because you're not interested in it, the whole thing just disappears from your consciousness. When you have nibbida, you are really uncreating your world. So he's translated it in that case as disengaging. Elsewhere, he uses the word dispassion. And then he says that Nibbida gives rise to a more intense form of dispassion, which is called viraga. Viraga is sometimes called fading away. It's this fading away of the identity, of the reactivity, of the identification, of the clinging, of the craving. There's a standard phrase that we see in many different suttas, which is knowing and seeing things as they are. One becomes disenchanted, that is, based on, gets this nibbida. Being disenchanted, one becomes dispassionate. And in that translation, the dispassion is the viraga. And then being dispassionate, one becomes free. Becoming free, one has the knowledge of freedom. And then we're right up to the point of our full awakening, our full enlightenment. Nibbida is elsewhere. I have another metaphor. Nibbida is like the chicken's beak or claw with which it breaks through the shell of ignorance so that it emerges into the open fresh air of true reality. So in that metaphor, the Nibbida is not just something that's very gentle and sort of fading away, but instead it's a definite stronger kind of an action, poking through to crack through. So there is some kind of an energy in Nibbida. There's a phrase for that's very common in Pali, which is related. It's called Nibbija pakamati, which is leaving disappointed. So the Buddha was disappointed with his former teachers and he left them. Some of the Jain monks were disappointed with the behavior of the other Jain monks after the passing of their teacher, and they left the Jains and came to the Buddha. There's the metaphor of the jackal who cannot get the meat out of the turtle when the turtle has pulled its head and limbs into the shell. The jackal becomes disgusted and walks away. Or the dog who finds an old bone that has been thrown out, and this bone has been exposed to the elements and to the sun for a certain amount of time, so that all of the flesh and juice that was on the bone has gone away, and the dog maybe smells a little bit of a faint smell of meat, and so he picks it up. He's looking for some food, and he chews on the bone and chews on the bone, but he can't find any food on the bone. He can't find any meat. He can't find any marrow. He finds the bone is just empty of any kind of nutrition, and so he drops it and walks away. So this is what Nibbida then has, this sense of being, you had some kind of an expectation or some kind of illusion that this process of life is also the process of happiness. That when you're hungry and you get something to eat, that takes away your suffering. So you're expecting happiness from food. When a person, this mind, this contact, when we are dull or when we are bored, the mind seeks some excitement. It seeks some contact. It wants to have experiences. Or even if something unpleasant has happened, the mind wants something different. And so then it seeks out some different kind of contact to cover up something else that was unpleasant. And so if, because of some kind of injury or disability or something like that, we were not able to have that contact, we would feel a very sad, grievous kind of loss. So one of the types of contact is the eyes. If you lost your sight, that could be very sad. It could be almost like a trauma that you no longer have access to visions. Or if you lost your sense of smell, you could feel kind of really sad and depressed about being cut off by that. So to be cut off from the contact is something that's depressing. We want it, we need it for life. But having this expectation that these nutriments are going to be for our true welfare, for our true happiness, we will be disappointed because they don't lead to our true welfare, they don't lead to our true happiness. All they do is they keep the body alive. All they do is keep an individual together and going along for whatever amount of time is left in this continuum of existence. And so then seeing that limitation, having that disillusionment, one can, with this active force, this kind of like an energy of Nibbida, one can turn away from seeking refuge in those things. And then, having turned away, one can then subsequently experience, this is the way I see it, this viraga, this fading away, having turned away from the desire or the belief that the nutriments are the way to happiness, and having decisively put that down. That's the Nibbida. Then the viraga, the delight, and you could say delight and lust or passion for those things, like the reactivity, the relishing, would gradually fade away and become less and less powerful. And one begins to experience instead this wonderful sense of tranquility and freedom, not being attached. One has that vimutti, that freedom because of being disengaged. One is not disturbed. So not being disturbed, then one has the powerful equanimity. For the longest time, I liked the word disenchantment as a word for Nibbida, but I realized that being enchanted sort of implies that there was some kind of a magician or some magic person that put you under a spell, somebody else outside, but actually it's coming from within us. The translation as a disillusion is very good, because to be under an illusion is directly pointing to ignorance, to avidya, or to moha, which are deeply internal characteristics that we're seeking to be free from. So disillusionment is quite a good expression. I also have a special fondness for the translation sometimes to think of Nibbida as disappointment. And the reason I'm so fond of it is that my teacher, Bhante Gunaratana, often used disappointment for the situation in which someone has done something wrong, or somebody has really let you down, or things have really gone the wrong way in a kind of a strong kind of a way that could be, you could have a reaction of indignation or anger or upset about things that have gone the wrong way. And in those kind of circumstances, Bhante always used the term disappointment. Oh, I feel disappointment. And that's such a neutral and unbiased kind of a term that almost I can feel when I remember the way that Bhante used to use the word. I can feel my heart coming into a calmer place in just saying, oh, well, okay, so, like everything's falling apart. Oh, that's a disappointment. And so those are some of the words that we see for Nibbida. Nibbida is a really good, strong, central term that we see in many different places, in many different contexts. It's very much related to insight. So, having made this brief reflection, I'd be happy to hear if there's any questions or comments about that. If you've ever wondered what Nibbida really meant, or if you've ever experienced it in your own practice, that's something that you used to be under some illusion, but then you became disillusioned. Or you used to be enchanted and you became disenchanted. Or you had expectations and you have given up your expectations. Okay, Sheila, and go ahead.
Good evening, Ayya. Thank you for this teaching. The word disappointment has been in my thought and vocabulary lately, so it's actually gratifying to hear that word is something that Bhante G has used as a perspective. So I really appreciate that. And what I'm thinking about as I listen this evening, I'm getting to the place where there are certain people or circumstances that it's time to put aside. And I'm wondering, so that it's not in with aversion, and what's a recommended process? Is it just, see someone for the last time, or, there might be some social activity that I'm pretty sure I probably won't be interacting, but these are long-term friendships, but it's just time to move in a different direction. And have been wondering, do I just, not contact people, or, interact one last time, quote unquote? Your thoughts would be very helpful and beneficial. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful question. It is certainly true that if a circumstance or a social situation is causing one to be not making progress, if you see, when I'm staying in this situation, my defilements are increasing and my virtues are decreasing, then one should leave that situation. They say that if a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni is staying in a certain community with a certain teacher, if their defilements are increasing and their wholesome qualities are decreasing or not increasing, then even if they get really good even if the requisites are very good, so even if it's a rich monastery and they get a good square meal every day, they should leave. And if they're in a place where they can see that their defilements are decreasing and their wholesome qualities are increasing, even if the requisites of life are not very good, even if the food is not very good or the lodging is not very good, they should stay there as long as it's continuing to be supportive of their progress. I would think in terms of the process that some kind of process that involves loving kindness and forgiveness would be really good. I'm not feeling very sure about whether this has to be like having a meeting saying, okay, now I'm going to give you my blessings and forgiveness and say goodbye, or else whether it's just an internal contemplation that you do. I'm not, I think you can think about what format something like that might take. But if there's any aversion, or even worse, if there's anything that was a hurt, if someone has been hurt or injured, they do need to make themselves safe. But then they also, I understand it's better not simply to get away from that circumstance, but to eventually be able in a safe way to close the circle and to have a reconciliation and forgiveness towards that person, even though you're not choosing to be around that person or that situation. That's my thought about that. I'll call on Ren.
Thank you, Ayya. I was wondering something similar to Sheila's question as well. In a situation where one is fading away, and at the same time having a lay life? Is it still possible? If that's possible, how does one balance that with staying compassionate and maintaining goodwill while navigating? How does one navigate, in this situation? For example, when with friends, they're no longer in sync. But sometimes it's not friends, sometimes it's work life, sometimes there's some causes that might be good and compassionate to be involved in, but you're kind of out of sync. How does that, how do we do that?
Well, I'm sure this is a very high bar to follow, but there's this idea of bhavatanha, which is the craving for existence, and vibhavatanha, the craving for non-existence. And so you could say that in our ordinary life, in this world here, there are so many things that are sustaining our situation and our position as being just having a place in the web of everything that's around us. So we have our place in the web of our friends, our associates, our relatives, and all that, and we have our place in terms of our position, our job, our education, our social status, and clinging to all of those things is the bhavatanha. But then, if we are trying to get out of clinging to those things, there's a danger of falling too much the opposite side towards this kind of ill will, which is this vibhavatanha, which we say, I hate my life. I'm caught in this web and I hate this web. I want to destroy it. I want to get rid of it. I've got some kind of a position in life, and I hate my position. I want to get rid of it. Even you could say a person has occupying a certain kind of body, and they say, I hate my body. I want to get rid of it. So the Buddha is advocating a position where, because of this process of seeing things as they really are, having that Nibbida or disillusionment, the viraga or the dispassion, experiencing that freedom, and practicing relinquishment, which means that if once you've gotten a taste of freedom, you don't pick up the same jail cell again and put yourself back in jail after you've experienced freedom. So because you've relinquished it, but then the enlightened person doesn't have any inclination either towards becoming or towards non-becoming. So in between this craving for existence and this craving for non-existence, they're kind of like perfectly in the middle. They're disengaged. They don't have any craving one way or the other. So there is such a thing as a kind of a disengagement which is not accompanied by ill will. Which still is fully capable of loving kindness and compassion. It is kind of interesting that the questions that come up are about the social factors, which indeed are part of the, you could say, part of the nutriment of existence, that human being normally, I think that they say that humans need to have social contact. Even if the baby doesn't get social contact, they might even die from the lack of contact, with the lack of contact with humans. And even a human who is an adult, if they are put in a solitary confinement and really deprived of having any connection whatsoever with another human, it's just the food comes in through the slot in the door once a day, and they never, the guards or nobody is speaking to them, and they are really isolated from contact. That can cause someone even to go mad by the lack of social contact, or it can even cause them to make friends with. They might have like a cockroach in their jail cell, and so then that would be the being, and their need for social contact is so great that they will have a compassionate and friendly relationship to this little insect that's existing in the cell, in order to save themselves from insanity. So then, just the same way, we just admit, I can't stop eating while I have got some life left, even though I'm not striving to be continuing on this round of rebirth, going on, being reborn again and again, even though I'm striving for the end of rebirth. Nevertheless, for whatever time is left, I have to eat. For whatever time is left, I have to have social contact. It's unavoidable to have contact with people, and that's part of one of the necessities of being a living person. But we do it in a way which is detached. Just the same way one can have a very detached attitude about taking the food that we need. Richard?
Thank you, Ayya. You said, correct me if I'm wrong, Nibbida, Viraga, and Vimutti, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, no, go ahead. What were you going to say? What were you going to say, Ayya?
Well, in the Anapanasati, there is a viraga, nirodha, patisam,
Patisambhava?
patinisaga,
Patinisaga.
and nirodha. So those and vimutti. So that's a slightly different list.
Right. Anyways, I thought that example you gave of the chick was kind of interesting. Although I saw it in a slightly different way. I would see Nibbida as the desire to get out. Viraga is the chipping away, and I'll explain that in a minute why I think that. and then vimutti is the escape. Now, in looking at Pali words, there's something very interesting. When you have vi as a prefix to words, if you ever looked in the Pali dictionary, I always like to think of it it's like the Swiss Army knife of prefixes. It can mean yes, no, good, bad, complete opposites. You know what I mean? So I think there's an error in translating V. And I studied this quite extensively because, it just didn't make any sense to me. And so I think V really means more like complete or final. And the reason I came up with that idea is that when you look at dukkha, sukha, and vipaka, right? So the way I translate it is dukkha means bad result. Sukha means good result, right? Like birth is a bad result. Death is a bad result. Old age is a bad result, right? So leaving this world and say going up into the heaven, right? Relatively speaking, it's not completely a good result, but it's like a better result than being here and going through all this misery, okay? It's sometimes described as a sukha or going into the jhanas, right? Those are described as sukha. Buddha finds sukha wherever he can find it, and it's described that he goes through up all the jhanas and the formless jhanas. There's a sutta, I believe, in the Majjhima Nikaya about that. So anyways, I think that raga means like to color something, all right? So it's like we all know psychologically people talk about red with anger, green with envy. I have the blues, right? In other words, these emotions are all tied into these colors, right? So viraga means like, you might say, the final passion or final emotion in the sense that that desire for liberation and enlightenment, right, blossoms, and like that becomes your, that's like your passion in life. That's what you want to achieve, right? Viraga. And so when viraga sets in, then you're able to push forward. It gives you the power, the ability, the strength, whatever, to push forward to attain vimutti. Final liberation. So again, that word final or complete, right? Vimutti. So
That's a very different.
anyways, that's just, my view, but I think it simplifies it and makes it clearer, in my opinion. Maybe other people won't think that, but that's how I view it. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Mm-hmm. So instead of making viraga, as Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as dispassion, and Richard is translating it as like the final passion, the last passion, which would be the passion or the emotion, which is leading one onwards towards freedom. We're going to have to ponder about that. You're lucky because you're a layman, and you can think about creative thoughts and say them, and nobody will accuse you of anything. And then when I speak, I feel a little bit more like taking care to see if I can find an authority figure to back up an idea. But that really is an interesting way of looking at viraga. Raga indeed does mean color, and one metaphor that's given sometimes is if you have a still pond and you put some drops of dye or color into a still pond, that then slowly the color sort of spreads out until it disappears and becomes invisible. And so in that way, viraga is associated with a kind of a disappearance of the self or the individualism.
Yes, I forgot to add. So for me, viraga, just like these different passions have different colors, viraga is white. You know what I mean? It's like the color that, you know, is not associated in a sense with any of the other colors. Or actually, if you combine all colors together, right, in a certain palette, it becomes white.
Yes.
Anyways, just
I hope that everybody will remember Nibbida, and even try to develop in your own mind a metaphor or an image for Nibbida. It could be like the chick breaking out of the egg, or it could be something that's related to letting the passion drain out of a situation, something related to cutting, like the puppet on the string, you know, they cut the strings and then the puppet is free. So that would be like becoming like disentangled. And then from time to time, something can happen that arouses our reactivity, whether it be something that arouses our greed or something that arouses aversion or something that arouses any other kind of strong emotional reaction like that. And then if there's a kind of like an image that you could remember, and that would make you step away, it would make you turn away from that emotional reaction. You would remember how disappointing it is if you just look to get satisfaction for your anger or from your anger, or if you look to get satisfaction from praise, or if you feel like you have to react very strongly to defend yourself from blame. That when these kind of circumstances come up, if you could say, there's no meat left in this old bone, I could just drop it. Come on.
Thank you, Ayya. I was thinking about something that happened in the very early part of my monastic life. I was listening to Richard and thinking about how the vanishing, fading, cessation, and relinquishment process doesn't seem to happen like as a decision, but like it all seems to happen all at once. You know, like when you realize there's no Santa Claus because you actually see the gifts in the attic, it's not like you have to decide to let go of the belief in Santa Claus. That vimutti happens right away because you've seen it for yourself. So I was at a monastery, and as a kid we used to have these particular snacks called Cheetos. It's like a crunchy, cheesy snack, and it was just so good, as a kid. And then it's been, I don't know, 40 years or something since I've had this snack, but somebody brought this snack to the monastery. And I remember taking a bite and feeling like every cell in the body light up. I mean, it was just so visceral that the connection between the sense contact and the reactivity, the response was so clear that it reminded me of the two things: the Indriya Bhavana Sutta, 152 in Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha talks about if you see a form with the eye, you hear sound, smell, taste, you're going to experience an agreeable, disagreeable, or both agreeable and disagreeable feeling. And to know that as coarse, conditioned, independently arisen, and turn the mind toward equanimity. So if you think about that, it would feel like, okay, it's kind of hard to do. You've got to, there's a process. How do I do it? But for me, what I try to remember is like the rat in the cage. Like in psychology, they wire up a rat, and the rat presses a lever, and it does what the engineer wants. It gets a cheese pellet. If it doesn't do what the engineer wants, it gets a shock. So it's being controlled by its reactivity to the agreeable, disagreeable, and neither disagreeable nor disagreeable feeling. So when I remember that that's what's happening all the time with these khandhas, and couple that with the direct experience of like the Cheetos or like the snacks, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore in terms of letting go, because the mind sees in its own experience, and when that happens, then the letting go seems to be automatic. Do you know what I mean?
So the most efficient way to let go and turn away is because of insight. Then it's almost automatically. If you see it for what it really is, then automatically you would take your hand away from the hot stove. Sometimes we don't see it. We don't see it clearly, or sometimes we are still deluded or unclear in our seeing. And if there's still some delusion left, it can be useful to use, like you say, half measures to help us to calm down, to help us to be cautious, to help us to stop and say, this doesn't feel quite right. Let me investigate it further until I understand it. But indeed, as you say, when the insight is really there, that does the whole job.